What were those moments of dialogue where you had to have the courage to make that leap?
I had a girlfriend who sat me down and she goes, "When are you going to stop playing guitar and get a real job?" And that was like, a big punch in the guts.
I'd love to hear more about your model when you started to get into 100K to 200K. Like, what did that model look like?
People think you can't make $100,000 as a music teacher when it's very easy to do. Why work 60 hours a week for $100,000 after all that stress of running a business when you can make $100,000 teaching 6 to 10 hours per week? So what is the general purpose of making a business?
Usually to help people.
To make money, right?
Make money, help
McDonald
people.
isn't worried about helping people, right? If you want to make more money, the first thing you have to do is...
No, this is amazing. Amazing. Thanks for sharing all that. So I guess like just for some context, like how would you describe the people you help and like how you serve them anyway?
Yeah, so I help mainly guitar teachers who want to get a bit more financially savvy, get a bit more organized in their business, or who at the bottom line just want to make a lot more money. Some people have that true musician suffer for your art kind of mentality where they don't like the idea of money and they feel bad about it, or just straight up aren't comfortable with talking about finances at all. But I see so many people who they put 10,000 hours into learning this instrument and then just think that's going to be enough. And yeah, they're all fantastic musicians, but they're all doing it really, really poor. And I was very late to learning how to play guitar. I didn't start till when I was 15. So I always felt like I was playing catch up and not good enough. I didn't feel insecure, but I just wasn't where I wanted to be. I didn't have any insecurity. I just thought, getting up on stage and sucking sometimes or not being good was just part of developing. But there was people who, I would say, were naturally gifted musicians or had been working at it for 10 years who were way better than I was and probably would ever be.
Hmm.
But I got all the opportunities because I was organized, because I was professional, and because I really wanted it and I just went out and made it happen. So some of these things, are part of my personality, but some of these things were, how I was brought up to be organized, to go after things that you want and to not always, just accept the status quo. And I think that's something that a lot of musicians do is they just accept uh, that they're going to be poor. It's like, okay, if I'm going to be a musician, then I'm going to be broke all the time. And they just play into
Hmm.
their own stereotype and often talk down about people who are doing well, or there's that degree of envy or things like that. So for me, it's just about helping musicians become more successful financially. Um, Whether that means an extra $1,000 a month or making $100,000, $200,000 a year teaching.
Hmm.
But I think, one of the things which you and your audience probably know is that there's a certain satisfaction that comes with people think you can't make $100,000 as a music teacher when it's very easy to do. And for most people, the idea of making $100,000 is like, oh, there's no way it could happen. Yet doing it in 6 to 12 months, as I've been able to do with many of my clients, it's
Hmm.
really good to prove those people wrong. But it doesn't matter how many people you prove wrong, they still think it's a scam or that somehow it's impossible. So, I think you're fighting an ideological battle, and there's a lot of uh, poisons that people have got in their mind, for lack of a better term, mental blocks, preconceived notions of what success is and what you should be as a musician, and it's all
Hmm.
jumbled up. So, without waffling on further and further, I think getting this idea of I was all about just like making uh, money, but it started out with creating an ideal life. I
Hmm.
didn't set out to be this owner of a couple of two big music schools. I just set out to make enough money teaching guitar part time so that I could go on tour and I could do all the fun stuff. Because
Yeah.
I was told by teachers early on that, hey, you need to go to college and you get a degree so you can become a classroom teacher, and that's going to give you financial stability. And then hopefully you can work on your passion projects at night. And if they take off, then fantastic. But it was always like uh, talked down upon, you can't make music your plan A. It's got to be your plan B. Well, this career. And all I saw was a whole bunch of teachers in high school, in university, who they were professional teachers in the capacity that they worked for a school in the area, but none of them were out there touring. None of them had all these records to their name. It was all like an afterthought, or hey, what can I do with the little hours I have left after all of my effort and energy has been burnt out during the day? And I
Hmm.
saw this and I was like, I can't do it. And the final nail in the coffin for me was And I've told this story on other podcasts, so if I've got any repeat listeners, you know what I'm about to say. But the head of guitar at my university is 10 times a better musician and guitar player than I will ever be. But he talked about this jazz fusion player, Mike Stern, coming to Australia, and he got the opening gig. And after the first night, he got invited on the rest of the tour as the opening act. At the end of the tour, long story short, he got invited to go to the USA and open the 40-date US tour on their next thing in a couple of months,
Hmm.
and got promised a record deal and all these kind of things. He went home over the weekend, then had to call back Mike Stern on the Monday and say, "Hey, I can't do this because I can't lose my job. I can't, feed my family while I'm off touring at the moment." And
Yeah,
basically,
because he still had the university job at that time, right?
yeah, he still had the commitment to that
Yeah.
university job, and that's the equivalent of the Super Bowl touchdown with 5 seconds to go in the music career, is getting the opening band support, then getting a record deal out of it, and then I've got no doubt that the history of jazz guitar would have been changed had he been signed to this label and done this tour, because he is that good of a guitar player.
Hmm.
But I just saw, hang on, unless I can change the path I'm on, this is going to be my future. Teaching in a university, which I'm not knocking that for anyone, it might be a very fulfilling career. But he was bitter about it, and that was like 25 years earlier. And he still, there's not a day that would go past where he doesn't go, had I taken this choice, my life would have been
Yeah.
completely different, and I would have been doing something a lot more fulfilling. So for me, it was about, okay, so how can I not become financially dependent on another person for a job? And how can I actually just go out and, create my own path, make a lot of money so I can support my, financial ambitions, whatever they are, so I can
Hmm.
feed my family, so I can look after my parents in retirement, so I can have the life I want and go out and play music at the same time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's I think it's so important with that identity shift where it's like we're moving away from the starving artist mentality or that broke musician trope that I think like society really like kind of grooms us with. And I feel like in those moments where we're choosing between what we want as our dreams versus like making it possible with reality, like I feel like there's always a disconnect and it's always like a battle with a lot of teachers who are facing that. Um, but for you, of course, like you've had a lot of success in your story. I would love to know, like, where were those moments that felt like there was like a fork in the road where because you took this path, that's really what brought you to where you are now? And like, what were those? How would you describe those moments of dialogue where you had to have the courage to make that leap? What was that like?
Yeah, there's a couple of instances, and a lot of it is being intentional and taking control versus just going through the motions. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start playing guitar till like literally my 15th birthday was the day of my first guitar lesson. I used to go to my auntie's house, and it's family. Sometimes you have fun with your cousins and things, and sometimes it's really boring. There's nothing to do. So they had a piano, and somewhere between the ages of 8 and 12 or whatever, when we got bored of PlayStation or we got bored of running around causing a muck, you'd come in and I'd just start tinkering on the piano, and I would just try and figure out, Legend of Zelda songs from
Nice,
like
nice.
video games that I love. So I just play these little melodies, and everyone say, "Oh, you've got a really good ear for music." And I was like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm just trying to figure stuff out," and didn't really make anything of it. And then in year seven, when I got to high school, we did like an aptitude test, and I was the first person in a bunch of years to get 100%. And I got invited down to music night, and that's where they try and sign everyone up for the school band. And
Hmm.
Australia doesn't have a very big band culture in schools. Being a musician is not a respectable profession. It's all about sport here in Australia. And rock music's really popular, pop music's really popular, but this classical kind of orchestral band music just doesn't really have any holding here in Australia. But they try and sign everyone up at the start of the year for the band programs, because
Hmm.
if they don't get you then no one's interested. No one decides halfway through year nine that they want to play cello or something like that. It doesn't happen. But they go, "Michael, we saw your scores. We got the perfect instrument for you." And they hold up this and go, "Here's an oboe." And my dad and I just like looked at each other and started laughing. They're like, "Are you serious?" And my dad, he looked at me and goes, would you like to play a real instrument like guitar or drums or something? And my heart skipped a beat because I really, really wanted to say yes. And I just got all shy and I said, oh, I couldn't do that. I had, maybe not a moment of self-doubt, but it didn't seem like it was me at the time. And I
Hmm.
really wanted to say yes, but I didn't. And long story short, I went another 2.5 years, and my cousin actually got a guitar for his birthday. Um, it was meant to arrive for his birthday, but it didn't arrive for a couple of months. So we had a party halfway through the year to celebrate his guitar arriving, and he showed me a few things. And
Yeah.
my birthday was like 3 weeks later. I spent the rest of the party playing his guitar, and I was like, Dad, can you get me a guitar? And he's like, I've been waiting 2.5 years for you to ask me that question. So we went down the shop like the very next day, and we organized one and put it away for a couple of weeks until it was my birthday and I had my first lesson. But that's getting to the point where I just went with lessons at my high school teacher. And my high school teacher, in many ways, was a really awesome teacher. He inspired me to get totally into, rock, where heavy metal and rock became part of my personality for the next 10 years and things like that.
Nice, nice.
Um, but he also was just the guy that was at the school, and he did many good things. But as a teacher now, and retrospectively, he did a whole bunch of things that if he was a member of my staff, then he probably wouldn't have a job anymore, kind of thing. And I say this with the utmost respect, because if it wasn't for him teaching me guitar, we probably wouldn't be here right now. But it wasn't until at the end of high school, I was put on this path to say, hey, Michael, you've got to go and study at university, and you're probably going to be poor, so you need a proper job. So the
Mm.
status quo, as you'd say, was get a day job teaching music, do your music on the side. And that was repeated by him, the music coordinator, and a whole bunch of other people at the school. What I decided between finishing high school and going to university was I went out and found a teacher who was a jazz teacher, because I got accepted into a jazz course. I had never
Nice.
done any jazz whatsoever at that point. So I went and found another teacher who he actually did teach at the school before moving on somewhere else. And he was the only person I knew who taught jazz. So I called him up and said, hey, I've got accepted into this course. I've never played jazz in my life. Can you help me out? And I went and did 6 weeks of lessons with him over the summer break, driving, an hour each way to get to his house. And I experienced for the first time what a truly good, great teacher was, because it
Mm.
wasn't, we're going to teach you what you need to pass the exam. It was, okay, you've got a goal, you've got a deadline. This is what we need to do to get you there. So this is something that I take in my own approach,
Mhm.
is not just trying to teach everyone randomly, or not just waiting until they sit in front of you to go, all right, what do you want to work on today? He goes, this is the stuff you need to know, and this is what you need to do. And we worked really hard together over a couple of weeks. And had I not done that, I would have really struggled, because I did struggle in my first year, going from the best high school Eddie Van Halen guitar rock player to
Yeah.
the worst university jazz performer.
Mhm.
And it wasn't disheartening, but it was a struggle, because I was always coming in last place, and it didn't come naturally to me at all. But I experienced what it was like to actually not just go with the status quo of, this is the environment you're in. um, you become a product of the environment, of going and finding someone who could do what I needed. And that got me the help that I needed at the time. So it was my first instance of going out and getting a mentor who could
Nice.
help me get through this place. And that's where the breakthrough was, in my understanding, was, okay, if I can't do something, I need to find someone who is doing what I want to be able to do, and then learn from them how to do it, or at least model what they're doing if I can't get to them directly. Do they have a
Yep.
book? Can I do some coaching with them? And that's been a repeated theme of success, is post university, I made it through. I had just sacrificed my own playing again to do jazz for 4 years. I have not played jazz since leaving university. It was me getting put into a mold to be spat out the other end to say, this is what we think is a commercially employable musician here in Australia. You need to learn this kind of stuff. So just
Mhm.
like school and the education system tries to pop out, people a certain way so they can go to university or college or get jobs, so too was the university was trying to put me into this kind of mold of what a musician should be. And I really wasn't happy with my playing, even though
Mhm.
they were great university students. I went out and got help from another online coach who specifically taught the kind of heavy metal that I wanted to play, and that
Nice.
really again transformed my playing and my abilities in a very short, sharp period of time. And it was always seeing something I'm not happy with, something I want to change, whether it was the frustration of being broke or the reality of I had a girlfriend. And this is the point. that led me to really make the financial difference is
Hmm.
I had a girlfriend who sat me down. Or it was might have been one night before bed actually, and she goes, "When are you going to stop playing guitar and get a real job?"
Mm.
And that was like, a big punch in the guts because up to that point, I was living this dream of, yeah, I'm playing with my band and I'm touring around Australia and doing all this fun stuff. But the flip side of that was I was taking what little money I had from teaching guitar a bit on the side and working at a supermarket, and then funding that into my music career and not having much money left for anything else. So it was that whole Peter Pan. Yeah, I was having fun, but I wasn't really going anywhere. And I was in this whole little microcosm of my local scene where maybe in the Melbourne heavy metal scene, I was a pretty big player and everyone knew who I was. But on the national scene, we were nobodies. And on the grand scheme, we were just like a C or D level band that no one really cared about. So
Hmm.
to have, someone who I trusted and who we were thinking about starting a family say that was a real eye opener to say, you know what, I really don't have my life sorted here. So I went out to this business conference, and I started learning the business tips and tricks. And within like 12 months of that, I was making $100,000. And within another 18 months of that, I was making $200,000 in my teaching business. So
Hmm.
for me, I think it was like I'd never made $100,000 accumulatively between the age of 18 and 24 or something like that. I'd never really made more than $20,000 a year. And
Hmm.
then age 25, I think you're about that age now, aren't you?
Yeah, I just turned
Yeah.
25.
Age 25, I made $100,000 in a year for the first time. And then age 26, I'd grown that to like $200,000 a year. And that was like
Nice.
teaching out of the spare bedroom of my parents' house with a few other little things. But, I
Hmm.
was still teaching from home, um, leveraged to the max. So it was like this ridiculous, like after tax, it was still a pretty decent amount. And
Yeah.
you can imagine how I think I got taxed more in that year than I made in a single year,
Hmm.
which is, yeah, I don't know whether to be happy or sad about that. But yeah, it was just about challenging my beliefs and not just going, because I'm surrounded by this people brought up in this environment, I'm going to adopt these thoughts. And fortunately, my parents are both run businesses, and I've grown up around that. So I kind of had that business owner mentality, and I
Hmm.
really found myself out of place, especially at university. And not to make it a political thing, but I find a lot of artsy, creative type people have certain political beliefs, and they weren't business minded, they weren't entrepreneurial minded. For some reason, they will put 10,000 hours into their instrument, but they won't put $30 and a weekend into getting a book on getting organized or self help or
Hmm.
marketing themselves. And they're just kind of waiting for an opportunity to happen instead of going out and making it happen. So that's kind of what I did. I just went out and made it happen,
Yeah.
and it
Oh,
happened.
100%, man. Like that story really like touched and connected with my heart because I'm not like far removed from it, but like your experience in your university and being able to get out of that, like that's the exact experience I went through as well. And I felt like my path of being a music education major was, it's like you get your music ed degree, you go to your teaching credential for another year, and then you become like a public school music teacher, which is great for some people, but it just never really aligned with me, even though I loved doing it. Like I took my practicum classes, I loved elementary school semester, and I wanted to be like an elementary school band teacher for the longest time up until graduation hit. And then I was faced with the decision of like, okay, like, are you actually going to do your teaching credential or not? And I decided not to. I decided to continue growing my piano studio because I had more time now, and then also growing the coaching part. Just because I've always made decisions based on what feels good to me right now. Like what is feeling aligned with me right now. I don't know what the future holds, but what feels good to me, and being able to run my own business, being able to have control over my own schedule, that really aligned with me. And the whole thought of feeling like if I go into this public school music education system, I will be kind of fed into this funnel where I see all of my colleagues like joining that, but at the end of the day, like I knew them. I knew they weren't like truly happy because they still didn't have the time to be a performer if they wanted to or anything like that. So I wanted that freedom, and I was fortunate as well that my dad like is an entrepreneur. He's like a freelance entrepreneur, and then my mom was also very supportive of everything I did. So I've kind of just always done what feels right to me in the moment, and I'm glad that you went that path as well.
Yeah, and to go back to the whole university college thing,
Uh-huh.
uh, in Australia, you have to do a 4 year degree if you're going to be a teacher. So if you want to teach
Yeah.
in a classroom, whether it's primary school or high school, you have to do a 4 year degree, and that doesn't necessarily mean you can be a music teacher. But if you've kind of got existing music skills, you could probably get a primary school teaching position. If you
Hmm.
do a music degree, you've got to do at least a 3 year music degree, and then you had to do like a 1 year graduate diploma. I actually had an arm surgery in my third year of university. I had the injury in the second
Hmm.
year, had to have the surgery in the third year. Uh, and what that meant is I missed by 1 year. They changed the law, meaning you had to do a 2 years master degree in education if you
Oh,
did a music degree. So all of a sudden, it went from a 3 year music degree plus 1 year grad dip to a 5 year total
5 year.
study. But because the master's is a postgraduate degree, the price of it like doubles. So
Oh,
essentially,
oh my god.
that was right when I was discovering the entrepreneurship and starting to read books and things like that. So I was starting to put all these things in place to build up a business. So I was
Hmm.
studying, a part-time workload because I'd kind of done my degree over the last half of my degree post-operation. I'd done all the theory subjects while I was having the surgeries and the recovery, and I had to do the practical
Hmm.
subjects over the last stretch it out. So I started building this business up part-time, and I was probably making about $60,000 a year teaching maybe 12 hours through this model that I leverage. And
Hmm.
then I was told I have to go and do this extra course, which is a 25, 26 hour study load per week. Plus, 3 times a year, you have to have a 4 week placement. So you basically go into a school and do essential free work experience and observe and do that. And then at
Hmm.
the end of it, you can teach a degree where your base salary is 60,000 anyway. So I'm like, okay, I'm about to pay another $50,000 on top of the 30,000 I've already paid. Um, my base salary is about 60,000 with that's probably about 35, 40,000 US at the time.
Hmm.
And then the upper limit to that's about 80,000 unless you go to like a prestigious private school where you can negotiate a bit higher. And I was just like, I'm already making that money teaching about 12 hours a week. Why don't I just skip uni and just do my own thing and be my own boss? And the downsides of classroom teaching was I remember being in a high school classroom with 30 kids, and maybe me and four other kids were like kind of the music people who really enjoyed it. There was 20 people who didn't care. There was 3 or 4 people who were like openly disruptive, and there was one person who just hated every minute and made it his personal mission to make life hell for the music teacher. And I was like, I don't think I really want to put myself in a scenario where I'm not surrounded by everyone who wants to learn or be there. And some
Hmm.
of the best things about university was the fact that I was with a cohort of 200 other people in my year level who they were musicians, they loved it, they wanted to be there, they got to play and jam and make music. So that part of university was fantastic. But the kind of fact that there was just so much going on, and um, the outcomes after uni, and I think I'm probably
Yeah,
like one of
what it kind of led to. I
yeah.
agree.
And it just means, okay, now I'm going to be a wage slave for the next 45, 50 years, not being able to do what I want. Yeah, I might get holiday pay and a couple of weeks off per year extra than a normal job. But if I've got
Hmm.
to do 2 hours of corrections after I finish working every day and do all these extra, events, I don't mind, volunteering my time for after school concerts and things like that. But if I do it in my own business with people I choose to work with and deal with, and make 4 times the amount of money, then
Yeah.
why not? And yeah, I didn't go to the university path. Some aspects of certain qualifications or studying your craft even further are still really appealing to me. But yeah, that like I knew I was on the right path. I knew I had to get out of that system the moment that teacher told me that story about opening for Mike Stern and having to say no.
Hmm.
That was I need to make a decision here and now. And then this university thing, maybe a couple months later, was when I go, you know what? Here's another crossroads where I get the chance to turn back and uh, relive it or go. Here's my last chance to re-enter the matrix, so to speak. And I was just
Yeah.
like, no, I'm out of here. I'm going to do my own thing, and I've
Yeah.
never
Can't go
looked back
back.
since. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I'd love to hear more about your model that you're doing with the guitar school, and like kind of like the stages that you went through from when you started to get into 100K to 200K. Like what did that model look like, and did it change at all as you were growing the business?
Yeah, great stuff. So I think the model is there's two things people need to change if they want to make more money teaching music. The first is their mindset. Unless you want to make more money, if you believe money is good, that you see it as a resource to enrich your life and the life of those around you, and money is something that amplifies who you are. If you're a good person, more money is going to make you a better person because you can go
Yep.
and do more good things. If you're a bad person, money is going to allow you to amplify the bad things you can do. So, you know, you always hear money is the root of all evil. No, or anything like that. Love of money is the root of all evil. Money is just another tool and a resource. So
Hmm.
if you want to make more money, the first thing you have to do is change your mindset about money and see that it's a good thing. You need to want more of it. You need to be working for it. You need to be providing the value so that people want to voluntarily give you money. The second thing you got to change is the model. And one-to-one tuition has some benefits, but for the vast majority of students, learning in a group model is far better. So you need to change to a group model of learning.
Hmm.
And uh, holding up on the private verse like groups thought, so many people go, okay, private lessons are worth $50 an hour, therefore groups are worth less, and I'm going to charge 20 people. So I might do a paired lesson and charge two people 30 and I'll make $10 more, or I'll get three people and charge them 20 and I'll get $10 more. So the price is okay. I need to make my group lessons far more affordable, and I need to try and get more people that way. But all of a sudden, you've leveraged your time. You're teaching more students in the same amount of time, but you're making a marginally,
Yeah,
little bit
just
more
like
money.
a little bit
Yeah.
more. That's it.
So you need to change to a group lesson model, but you need to charge a premium. And for
Hmm.
me, it's about not having lessons, not training, changing time for money. It's about how do I create a program that you subscribe to as a member of
Hmm.
an elite or prestigious guitar school. And you're not just paying for your lesson, you're paying for an entire program. I'm going to give you
Yeah.
so much more than what the average guitar teacher does. And I'm going to attract a high quality of client, and I'm going to suit the upper end of the market. I'm not going to exclude, people that can't afford it, and necessarily shun a bunch of people. But by charging higher rates, and even if you're charging private lessons, you've got to charge a higher rate. Even if you're charging group lessons, I believe my group lesson program is better than the average guitar teacher's private lesson guitar program for a number
Hmm.
of different reasons. And then I price myself accordingly. As soon
Yeah.
as you start pricing yourself higher, you make more money, which generally means your quality of life goes up, which means your quality of lesson goes up. And I took 10% of every dollar that I made and I put that into advertising more. I took another 10%
Nice.
and I put that into reinvesting into the studio. So I dressed nicer. That made a better first impression. That means people were more likely to sign up with me. When they signed up with me, I took their money and I got I stopped teaching in the spare bedroom and I got a facility. And then I
Hmm.
decked out that facility with really cool equipment, and then people would come and do a trial lesson, a free trial lesson, and go, wow, this place is amazing. Oh, you charge that much? Oh, but this guy down the road charges this much. Oh, well, do you get this, this, and this? No, you don't. Well, it costs you this much, but you get all these extra things. Who would you rather learn with? Me? Okay,
Hmm.
fantastic, cool. Sign up here. So for me, it wasn't about doing the same old thing everyone else is doing, because if you do everything everyone else is doing, you're going to get the exact same results. So yeah, within my model, I just basically switched to group lessons. I started charging for a program rather than just a lesson
Hmm.
rate, and I presented myself as an expert. I got the facility to back it up, and by becoming the best teacher I could, by investing into learning how to be a better teacher, by investing into running business better, the results I got from my students started to speak for themselves, and I kind of developed, that reputation in the area of being the go-to kind of like heavy metal guitar player. And
Nice.
so I had my own little niche. I wanted highly motivated guitar teachers, guitar students who wanted to shred, who wanted to do the specific stuff I love teaching. And as soon as I started getting testimonials and more videos of those kind of people, it created its own little flywheel where the momentum just built all these other people. So I know this is kind of not the exact model which you kind of asked, uh, but if I could go
No,
back
this
to
this
one
is
thing,
yeah.
all it did for me to make this idea, and everyone listening to this at home or watching to this at home needs to get their money maths right. So this is all I did. I said, I want to make $100,000 per year teaching guitar, simply because it sounds awesome, and $100,000 is a good, income here in Australia. So I just said I want to make $100,000 teaching guitar, and then I basically go, well, what would I need for that? So I divide it by 12 to go, if I make this much money per month, then I'm going to make $100,000, $8,334 essentially.
Yep.
I go, okay, well, if my lessons are worth $50 per month, $50 per student per lesson, that's roughly $200 per month. So all I did was divide 8,334 by 200, and you get 41 point something. So 42 students. I thought, if I get 42 students, I could be earning $100,000 per year. All I've got to do is teach 42 students at any one time for 12 months straight, and I'll be making $100,000. And I've gone, wow, that's awesome. That's so easy. So if I'm doing $50 private lessons, I have to teach 42 hours a week. Probably not ideal, but I can actually make $100,000. Anyone can do that. Anyone listening to this, even if you're not interested in making that much money, if you can just get 42 students to pay you $50 a week and you teach them every week of the year, and we'll get around that shortly, it's there. It's not hard. People just don't do the maths. So all these people going, oh, you can't actually make that much money. It's super duper easy. But where I saw that was like, okay, well, that's still 42 hours of work per week, which one, isn't sustainable, and two, you're making a lot of money, but you may as well just have a full-time job anyway. So this is where I go, okay, well, what if I do 30-minute lessons, all of a sudden I've only got to teach 21 hours. So if I can be good enough that people are going to pay me $50 for 21 for 30-minute lesson, then all of a sudden I've halved my teaching hours and I'm making the same amount of money. So if I can somehow make myself worth that much to people for a 30-minute lesson, then fantastic. So if anyone's listening to this and goes, oh yeah, I think I can pull that off. And I would say, in most Western countries, $50 is $50. It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's 50 Australian or 50 US. It kind of has the same, it hurts as much when you lose one. You're just as happy when you find a $50 note. Do you guys have $50 notes in
Yep.
the US?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of my thought there. But I was like, okay, well, I definitely don't want to teach 21 hours because that's kind of what I'm teaching now, and I think I could do better. So I thought, what if I do a paired lesson? What if I just have 2 people in a paired session, and then straight away your 42 students goes back down to 21? Okay, cool. What if I have 3 people per lesson? Wow, now I'm down to about 14 hours a week. What if I have 14 hours a week to make $100,000? Yeah, that's pretty sustainable. That's kind of cool. What if I have a group of 6? Cool. Now I'm teaching 8 hours per week and I'm making $100,000. I'm leveraged beautifully. And this is where the model happens. People are paying more for my group lessons than what most people pay for a private lesson. They're getting better results in my group lessons because I have all this infrastructure set up. I've taken the money and I've reinvested it back into it. And yeah, I still get people that aren't suited to groups, and I still get people that aren't necessarily, some people move on and get private lessons elsewhere because they feel like it wasn't matching their experience. But a lot of people love it. And if they want to move on, that's fine, because I've got a whole bunch of people who are going to be coming in next month and signing up. So for me, I've tried 6 people, and then I got a new facility, and then I was doing 10 people at once. So you got 10 people charging I'm charging them $50 per lesson. That's $500 an hour for certain hours that I teach. So and people are always on like Facebook going, you can't make that much money per hour. And I'm just like, well, let me get a napkin and draw the maths for you, or let me show you a picture of 5 people learning with me. So that's just, one element of what I do. But my model is essentially do your money maths and figure out how much you want to earn. If you want to earn $200,000, you've got to figure out how much you want to earn, what your monthly target is, how much you're going to make per month per student, and then just divide those numbers up. And that will tell you exactly how many students you need to acquire to make that much money, and how many hours you teach. And then if you just multiply that or divide that by how many students you can do per session, then of course that's going to give you the exact number of hours that you want to work. So yeah, not only can you make $100,000 teaching guitar, most people using my model can do it in 4 to 10 hours maximum if they have the capacity to teach in a big enough room. The last little caveat is if your lessons aren't good, you're not delivering quality, then people aren't going to stay in the program. So
Yeah.
you need to provide a good program. You can't, everyone can be a millionaire on paper kind of thing.
Yeah, if all it took was doing the math to become a millionaire, everyone would be millionaires.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you still have to provide the value. And that's kind of where, my coaching comes into it to say, hey, I struggled with this, and I put six people in a group, and then two of them didn't like the large group, so they quit, and then I had to figure out how to solve that problem and solve that problem. So I now, with my curriculum that I licensed, which has sort of been my Guitar Ninjas curriculum, basically came about
Nice.
because I wanted to create my own curriculum, and then someone's like, "Hey, what are
Mhm.
you doing?" They saw my Instagram videos and were like, "Oh, that looks cool. What are you doing?" Cool, I do this. Oh, hey, could I pay you to use that in my school? Okay, cool. Let's work something out. So, I now have a
Nice.
bunch of about 20 studios using my curriculum. I'd love to get that to 50. And then, of course, I've got my six-figure coaching program where I sort of help guitar teachers implement this in their business. But it's just been an ongoing process of figuring out what's not working and fixing it, figuring out what's not working and fixing it. And what I'd say with like COVID, so at this studio, the one you see me in right now,
Mhm.
um, this is kind of like my original studio, my business. It's our second location, but we've been here for 5 years now, and hopefully we'll be here for another five. Um,
Nice.
and remind me to come back to this about the actual model, because I've got something
Yep.
very important for your listeners. But during COVID, basically, uh, we couldn't operate here in Australia. And I'm in Melbourne, so I think we're world famous as the most locked down city in the entire world for
I remember
like
that.
yeah, like something like 2.5 out of the 3 years we had lockdowns. It was like ridiculous. um, 2020, we were locked down for 12 of the 11 months, essentially. And then the
Mhm.
following year, we were locked down for like another 6 of those months, and we were in and out. It was ridiculous. But fortunately, I foresaw that as happening, and we kind of pivoted online really well. And we ended up with more students after the lockdown than we had before, because all these teachers were going, I can't teach, I give up. And then I just swept in and scooped up all the people that still wanted to learn and all the new people. So
Mhm.
every chaotic event or disaster still has opportunity. But what I'm getting at is post COVID, we had to move to the other side of town. We had some tenants in my partner's property, and they basically took the advantage of the rental assistance that was happening and destroyed the house. So we had to move back into that house
Mm.
because we couldn't kind of we just had to move to the other side of town. But I opened up another studio from home during that time, and using everything that I already knew, I was able to go from 0 to 6 figures in 4 months in a new business.
Nice.
So for those of you who like it's impossible, once you know how to do it, it gets very easy. And once you've invested into a program like Ben's program or my program or
Mhm.
tons of, there's a handful of people I could say they know their stuff. Go learn from them, and you will make money. You'll improve what you're doing. So once you know how to make money, once you know how to build the businesses, it gets very easy to set up additional ones. So I went from no students to $100,000 teaching out of a garage in our like we
I love
renovated
that.
it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. And I was charging more in this garage because I started playing with the prices. So the
Uh-huh.
lessons were normally 200, and I went from I got to $100,000. I'm like, okay, I'm running out of spaces here. The next couple of people, I'm just going to tell them instead of 200, I'm going to go 250. So
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, the next batch of people started paying me 250 instead of 200. I'm like, okay, well, these people can pay more. Here's my new prices. So it only
Yep.
took me another 2 months to get to $200,000. We literally got like 4 months to get to the first roughly 30 students. If you have 30
Mhm.
students with my business model, you can make 100,000. Within 6 months, we were at 60 students. And then, now we're 120 students in that new location,
Yes.
which is now a professional studio. So,
That's
um,
awesome.
so the last little thing I'll add, which I wanted you to remind me about, was I've got this really awesome studio. This cost me $40,000 a year to run. It actually went up to $50,000 for just the rent. Yeah,
Mhm.
so that means I have to get 24 students paying me $200 a month just to cover the rent in this place. And then
Mhm.
if I've got to hire a teacher, I calculate their rate and say I need this many students to pay it off. So I really break down meticulously how many students I need to generate X amount of income to offset costs.
Yep.
When we opened up this new studio in our garage, we owned the house, so we weren't paying any rent. And yeah, we put a little money into renovations, but when we started making $100,000, that was literally like, okay, the government's going to take their tax money, but everything after that is pure profit because I'm doing this from home. And then 2 months later, when it's at $200,000, we're laughing all the way to the bank because we've got this super duper leveraged business. So what I would say to people, straight from the garage, yeah. And then we upgraded to a commercial location because we couldn't really have. There was times where I had two students back to back, two lessons back to back with 10 students each. So there was like 20 cars trying to get in and out of the street. So the neighbors were getting a bit unhappy with us, and we just thought, okay, this is growing to the point where we do need to get a commercial location. Get a commercial location. It costs a bunch of money. My happiness turns to depression because now I've got to pay all these overheads and property tax and all these kind of things. So my advice to anyone listening, whether it is online or offline, become a solo music teacher. Like, you can make a lot of money. You can make a huge revenue. And I can confirm that my goal is to make a 7-figure music school. We are, as of January 2024, we are over 70% of the way there, which is really, really awesome. But I'm not taking it home or keeping as much as what I did when I first started and I had that $200,000 a year teaching out of the spare bedroom at my parents' house. Then I got another taste of it during the middle of just post-lockdown, where we built this other home studio and we were doing $200,000 from the garage, and we were, the money was rolling in and everything was great. We're having a good time. So what I tell to all my coaching clients is, yeah, you've got this awesome business model. Start teaching groups, leverage them, charge a premium, do your money math so you know exactly how much to teach. But if you can teach that from home and just get a purpose-built studio in your garage or somewhere in your backyard or convert part of your house, like, you're going to pocket the extra $20 to $30 to $50,000 or so that you'd pay from rent, and you're not going to have all the headaches of managing teachers. Now, I've got a really great team, but even at the best times, my best teacher, if he has a poor, run of health or has to go off on tour, then all of a sudden I'm back working and I can't do all the stuff that I need to do because I'm filling in for my teachers. So bigger isn't always better. And yeah, if I make a 7-figure music school and I run it at a 40% profit margin, then fantastic, I'm doing really well. But if I got a 7-figure music school, I'm got all these overheads, I'm spending all these hours managing people, I'm doing all this, crazy running around, making sure everyone else is organized, and at the end I only make about 10% on the 1 million. I've done 60 hours a week for the whole year to have a very little reward for it. So I don't advise going out and building a music school. For some people, it works really, really great. And if you leverage the model properly, it works really well. But why work 60 hours a week for $100,000 after all that stress of running a business when you can make $100,000 teaching 6 to 10 hours per week, still have all this spare time for your own music, for your family, for vacationing all around the world, for whatever hobby it is that you want to do, your YouTube, your creativity, your personal music career. Or if you're like me, just go, okay, I made $100,000 teaching 10 hours a week. Can I make $200,000 teaching 20 hours a week? And just go, okay, well, yeah, maybe the music isn't as important to me right now, or this isn't as important. I'm just going to double down on making a ton of money, and in 3 to 5 years, just buy a house outright with cash rather than, getting a bank loan and all those other things. So the main thing is just, what is your ideal life, and what can we put in place to help you create that ideal life, and leverage group-based music lesson programs, preferably in a private teaching studio, to help you get there quicker. So yeah, that's kind of what I tell people. I also, the last little thing, and I'll bring this in for landing, is I generally and truly believe it is so much easier to build an in-person lesson teaching business than online, because there's such another layer of connectability when you're in person. It's so much easier to influence people, to build trust, to build a relationship when they can see you in person. And I do believe that online, you can leverage yourself way better, particularly with a course and everything. And you can also, if you're selling high ticket, if you just put in like 2 weeks of effort to get one client who pays you 5 to 10,000, you only need to do that like 10 times a year to make you 100K. So yeah, you can teach 10 people who pay you $10,000 versus 42 people that pay you $2,000, $2,400 a year.
It kind of ties back to what you're.
There's so many ways to
your ideal lifestyle.
Yeah, there's no right
100%.
or wrong way, and we can have very different business models that get you to the same thing. I'm just a
Hmm.
firm believer of it is so much easier to see the instant results. That's probably the way it is because you can do a
Yeah.
lesson with a person. When I was doing Six Figure Guitar Teacher, I think, and I hadn't put a huge number of people through the program, but you get 1,000 people who are interested. 100 people are interested enough to schedule a call with you. Um, of those 100 people, 50 don't show up. 50 do show up. You do a free session with them. You give them all your time, and then you never hear from them again, and they can't even have the courage to say, "Hey, sounds great, but I'm not interested because of this or that." So I'm sure you've got that experience if your model is similar with your coaching. Um, when it's in person, it's just a whole different kind of relationship there. But
Yeah, makes
that's
sense.
it. I'll wind this one down and pass it back to you, Ben.
No, this is amazing. Amazing. Thanks for sharing all that. So, I mean, based on what I've been hearing so far, it's like one, making sure that we have the right mindset around money so that we are not repelling it, but we are attracting it, making sure that we know our numbers. That's hugely important. Super underrated because as music teachers, we don't really like know to track our numbers. We just kind of learn business by doing it. But knowing your numbers is a really great way to lower down that anxiety of like, how many students do I really need? We tend to like over we tend to overwhelm ourselves with like the thought of 100K, but I like the way that you broke it down and made it really simple but also tangible to reach that as well. Having a scalable model so that if your ideal lifestyle is not to teach 42 hours a week, then we need to find a different model than one-on-one. And then having the right, like I do agree with you that like in person is definitely a lot easier to build trust with your students and your audience in person. It's really based on like it really ties back to what you're saying, like what is your ideal lifestyle? Are you wanting to be a teacher that has a big music school? Are you wanting to be a music teacher? Are you wanting to live a life where you are fueled with students coming to your home and teaching out of there? Are you fueled with staying at home and teaching online? It's like all these different paths. Definitely not a right or wrong one, but probably what you believe as well. There's a right one for you, right one for your life.
Yeah, and if you've got people who your goal is to be able to teach like travel and run a music business while you travel, you have to do an online model. You either have to
Hmm.
build up a school and employ people to work there while you're not there,
Yeah.
um, or you have to be able to teach freely from wherever you are in the world or wherever you want to be. So again, I'm
Yeah.
not going to say you only have to do in-person lessons. If you are fixed and you don't have any travel intentions, I would err on the side of that's probably the way to go for you. But if
Hmm.
you have any sort of international travel or something where you're going to be active or you want to see the world, then yeah, you kind of need to be able to access online clients who can still make you money 24/7 and you
Yeah.
can do the business side of things from wherever you are in the world.
Can I get your thoughts on something real quick?
Certainly.
Because I know you have experience with working with a lot of music school owners, and you built your music school yourself as well. I was working with one of my clients recently, and they were talking about they have a big music school as well, and a lot of the work that we did was getting them back into the teaching aspect, and they had a mindset block of like they grew up feel or they grew their music school feeling like if they stepped back into teaching then they were going backwards with their business, and that was like a surprising thing that I found out because I never thought of that, but it made me realize that there's probably a lot of other music school owners out there who have been growing their music school in the same way with like a bunch of teachers and trying to grow to a place where they're working on the business rather than in the business. But the thing you're talking about with like being a solopreneur and teaching, you're deep in the business itself as well as working on the business. So have you faced any of that mindset? Have you found any other music school owners who have faced that challenge of going from I've been spending all these years working on the business, but I want to get back in the business, but I feel like an imposter getting back into the business, or I feel like I'm moving backwards doing that. Like, have you experienced any clients that have been through that problem? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
uh Yeah, I have some who, well, this is how I would answer that question. I'd say, Ben,
Uh-huh.
what's the purpose of being in business?
Yeah, the purpose. At least for me, like like I want to know that I have a direct correlation to the impact that I'm making. Like at least this time of my life, I love to be in the trenches with my clients. I want it's a little bit of an ego thing, or like I want to know that I have made my mark on this person's life. And I feel like stepping out of the business like put some distance between that feeling of fulfillment that I've
Yeah.
made as
I'll
well.
ask it I'll
Yeah.
ask it a bit more
Yeah. Yeah.
generally because
Uh-huh.
so what is the general purpose of being in business or opening a business or making a business?
Um, I don't know. Usually to help
Yeah.
people.
Well, to make money, right?
Yeah, make money. Yeah,
Ronald
make money, help
McDonald
people.
isn't worried about helping people, right? Yeah. So generally, people made businesses to provide an income for themselves. And
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes we have this, oh, yeah, I want to impact this many people. I want to help people. Yeah, we want to put a certain amount of fulfillment. And often, if we're business owners, we get to do that. Unfortunately, there's people who have to flip hamburgers or dig holes in the hot sun, and they're not thinking
Hmm.
about, oh, man, I'm helping people. They're like, oh, man, I need to put food on my table and provide for my family.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
maybe a job is to provide, is to provide an income. The general purpose of business is to provide an income to make money. If we can tie that in, being self-employed, to what we feel is our purpose or our reason for being, or we take pride in our work, and that's why we, put so much of an emphasis on us being in lessons and teaching a certain way. That's an added bonus that we get as business owners. But generally, the purpose of business is making money. So, if the purpose is to make money, then we need to do what we need to do in order to make money. So, if the purpose of the business is to make money and provide for your family and provide a financial means of supporting the ideal life, whatever that is, that's going to drive you to be more impactful and do all the nice feeling kind
Yeah.
of stuff. But ultimately, if I can make $200,000 a year teaching in the business, then that's going to be better than, goes back to that, making a 10% profit on $1 million business or less kind of thing. So if I'm teaching and I'm doing all the teaching and all this and all that, but I'm making more money, then it doesn't really matter whether I'm working on the business or around the business. So
Hmm.
there are, it's not an easy thing to answer, but I would say, yes, you got to work on the business rather than always in the business. But if you're running a 20-hour operation, like I might teach 10 hours and then I have 5 hours of admin and then 5 hours of creating certain things or allocated project time, then
Hmm.
that's kind of cool. And for me, I can work 60 hours a week and it's pretty fun. Like, anyway, I like, if I had $1 million in the bank or $10 million in the bank, I would still be working on something. That's just the personality I am. I
Yeah.
think most business owners, we don't do it because we have to. Sorry, we work because we don't think any other way. It's not because we have to do it. It's because we want to
Hmm.
do it, kind of
Yep.
thing. But sometimes, yeah, you set your projects. I remember, and I say this to my clients, yeah, you're going to have to work 40 to 60 hours a week over the next 2 to 6 to 12 months to get to that point. But once you've got everything set up, it's set up. And I've fallen in the trap of this all the time, is going back and tinkering on my equipment. Like, if you're working on the business, what do I need in place? Do I have my lesson policy in place? You just make a big list of all the things that you need: a studio lesson policy, a direct debit system set up, a website, your content or your curriculum, an administrative process. You just get a blueprint. And this is what I give in my course: is this is the blueprint of all the things you need. Once they're set up, they're set up. You don't have to
Hmm.
keep on doing things. And yeah, there's a certain amount of maintenance that happens, or ChatGPT comes out. Okay, now I've got to learn how I can use ChatGPT, or uh, uh, I'm sick of doing this. Is there a software or something I can do that can automate it? Yeah, that does take time, but you're not spending 20 hours building a website for the first time. You're not
Hmm.
spending, once you've learned how to do Facebook ads, you might have to, update them once a month and do things like that. But you're not, it's not the 20-hour project it is the first time that you do it every single time. So that's what I say to my clients is, option one is in the beginning, when it's just you learn how to do everything, you write it down, you make SOPs, and once it's done, it's done. Now you can maintain it. Growing a garden takes a lot of effort. Watering it once a week and mowing the lawn once a month is pretty much what you've got to do with the majority of your business things.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you go and chase sexy things, fun, exciting things, that's when you run into trouble. Like if I just stuck with teaching my guitar studio and didn't write a curriculum and didn't do my 6-figure coaching, I would literally have 10 hours a week of stuff to do, and that'd be it. And I could go fishing or hang out with my family or whatever it is, or just do my music career. The fact that, and many of the people listening to this, because they're inherently entrepreneurial, the dilemma you'll have for the rest of your life is always having new ideas and impulsively chasing after them. I have a Trello board that says, these are all my cool ideas. This is my to-do list. Unless my to-do list is empty and all my projects are looked after, I don't go out and start any new projects. And, I've got to do a Kajabi, and Alex Hormozy's launching school. I've got to do that. And now I've got to build another. You keep on doing a whole bunch of half-assed things and just you run around in circles distracting yourself. But if you just make it boring, here's my timetable. I'm going to do this many trial lessons to get people going in, and hopefully more people come in than people go out the other side. And then I just tinker. I just maintain things. And if you don't keep out going and doing all the other crazy stuff and added projects, then you would have so much more free time. The other option I say is, okay, well, you're the owner of the business. What do you like doing, or where are your strengths? So when you know yourself, like I'm a hunter. I love going out and getting new clients. I love signing new people up. I love coaching people, but I've been teaching for 15 years now. Teaching the same old beginner guitar lesson isn't fun for me. Now I will do it if I need to, but I'd much rather outsource that to another person. I really don't like doing check-in calls with everyone, because why do that task when I can do that task? And the ones that no one else can go and convert new students like I can, no one can write the advertising copy like I can. I'm allocating my hours to those, and I'm going to hire to my weaknesses. So I would be the best guitar teacher in many ways, because I can go, this is what you need to do. I've got like the Terminator mindset. This is what I want. I'm single-mindedly focused on doing that right now. That's not always good for customer retention, because if someone doesn't practice, I can lack a bit of empathy around their situation and be like, well, I thought you wanted to learn guitar. Why aren't you doing this? Because that's what I did when I was learning. So coming to realize, and this might be a good thing for all your listeners who are teachers, your number one priority when you were growing up was probably your instrument. It was either in the top 3 for most people who become musicians to the point where, you probably didn't eat or sleep on certain days because you're too busy practicing. The average person who comes to you for lesson, you'd be lucky if guitar, it's probably in their top 10 priority, maybe number 9 or 10 for the month that they felt so compelled and inspired to reach out to you. And then by the 2nd or 3rd month, they're back to their job, paying for bills, wife, kids, the next hobby that's going to distract them from how mundane and boring their life is. So we're putting all this effort and energy into creating the perfect program, the perfect lessons for people that are just never going to appreciate them. When you get someone, or if you target your marketing only at people who are highly motivated and are maybe semi-professional, or people who are doing it for 10 years and they're still frustrated, they're the people you really gel with, because they're not the quitters. But for the average person coming in for guitar lessons, whether they're kids or adults, they're just trying it out to see if they like it. And in 3 months, they're going to be on to the next kind of thing. So that's just a little sidetrack note there. The sooner you understand that, the less frustrated you'll get with less serious students and things like that. But
makes sense though.
What are your weaknesses? If you're not good at this, this, and this, that's where you've got to hire someone to go and do that. So there's nothing wrong. The whole McDonald's story, the McDonald's brothers probably had, I believe, 6 to 10 restaurants, and they couldn't grow it anymore until they got Ray Kroc. So they were really good at making burgers and setting up the initial operation, but they had to go and find someone who can take it to that next level. I know a couple of music school owners who are just like, yeah, my strengths are in teaching and running this school, and they will hire a business operations manager to run certain things. My partner, Amy, she complimented me perfectly because I was good at building and teaching and doing this. I do not want to sit there and do the accounting or ticking off all these. So we get her to come and do that. And, I can't have the empathetic conversations with people because I'm like, you want to learn guitar? Let's learn guitar. This is what it takes. Oh, wait, like you didn't do the practice? Not as condescending as I'm being here now, but it's just like I'll give them the big fiery motivational pep talk, and that will just scare people off because
Yeah,
they go, okay,
sometimes people need, yeah, need it in a
yeah,
different way.
yeah. So I will hire all the teachers I hire aren't necessarily great guitar players. They're good enough, but they're people persons. They can communicate, they can empathize way better than I can. So I create the content, the lesson plans, and give them the plan of attack. My
Yep.
teachers are the ones that deliver that in a way that they can connect with people and get them to do the plan. So I teach certain kinds of students and they stick with me forever. When we get a personality that doesn't quite match me, we put them with this teacher. They might have lasted
Mm.
1 month with me or 3 months with them. We swap them around, and all of a sudden, I've got them for 5 years. He's got them for 5 years, and that student has gone from being worth, $2,400 a year, or um, if that student was going to last 3 months with me, that's a $600 transaction. If they've done 5 years with someone else, that's $10,000 right there.
Yeah.
And Dan Kennedy says, if you want to win business, you just need to figure out how to make your customers more valuable to you than what they would be with your competitor.
Hmm. Oh, I love this. I love this. Appreciate you for your time. I know I want to be respectful with it. Anything else that you wanted to share before we head off?
I'm happy to go for another 7 or 8 minutes up until 9 or whatever the 10-minute mark. If you've got a few more questions for me, I'm happy to give time to your audience.
Um,
But if
I
you've got to
guess
wrap it up, we can wrap it up.
yeah, I guess we could wrap it up because if anything, we can definitely continue this conversation on another like interview or another time as well. But yeah, would love to help connect more people with you. Like, what is the best place to reach you at?
Yeah, so if you hit me up on Facebook, there's generally going to be Michael Gumley. I've got a couple of one or two profiles. Hit the one with the blue profile, Michael Gumley. That's the one I do for kind of like business stuff. And if you hit me up on Instagram, just at Michael Gumley, most social media platforms, I'm there. Or you can just email me at info@sixfigureguitarteacher.com. The last little thing I'd probably say to the audience is, you know, you've got to do you. You need to get clear on what you want out of life. The earlier you can do that, the better. And it's allowed to change. It's definitely allowed to change. But you need to get clear on what you want out of life. And then you just need to visualize that, write down what it looks like, and just do the maths of, if I want to do this, can I make a teaching business that can financially support this project or this hobby or this passion or my family or all of them at the same time? And the answer is probably yes. Once you know what you want to do, calculate the numbers, go through and do it. And for some of you, when I go, hey, you only need 42 students to make $100,000, some of you are going to be going, wait, I've got 50 students. What am I doing wrong? And that's something I've done with a few clients is go, okay, you got 50 students. Let's just do this, this, and this. My student, Karen, literally, all we did was like tweak one little thing in her business model, and she made an extra $30,000 in the first month. And
There you
then
go.
3 months later, she was at 6 figures. Now, she didn't start at zero. The record for 0 to 6 figures is 5 months. But yeah, she, with her existing stuff, literally was able to halve the amount of hours that she worked and almost double her income, all from changing a few maths things and then communicating a few different changes. So it's easier to make $100,000 or higher or lower than you think. All you got to do is run the numbers, and that will give you a clear plan of attack. And yeah, by all means, if you just want to make an extra $10,000 a year, fantastic. Let me or Ben help you do that. If you want to make serious amounts of money, you need to reach out to a mentor or someone who's already done it. So if you're a guitar teacher, check me out, info@sixfigureguitarteacher.com. I'd definitely be keen to do some more collabs with Ben or come back and chat about a few things. But yeah, for the people listening to this going, okay, I don't know your model, Ben, for sure. But I know that you're definitely getting people results, and people are definitely going to be skeptical about, can you make $100,000? People are going to be skeptical about, am I getting scammed here? But if you do the work, there's no way you can fail. But it comes back to that mindset, because I've had clients who make 6 figures in 5 months, and I've had clients who, they drop out after 3 months because it's too hard. Is it too hard? Not really. Some people are just not cut out for the work, no matter what you give them. You can give them the keys to the Ferrari, and they'll still crash the car, kind of thing, rather than arrive at their destination. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Like, first of all, thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us. Again, feel free. I'll definitely include links to be able to contact you, Michael. I definitely recommend everyone chat with him. Ask him any questions. Feel free to ask me any questions. But I just want to say thank you for being a leader in our industry and paving a path for us music teachers.
No
It
worries.
goes
I appreciate
unnoticed.
the hard work that you do, and you're obviously helping a lot of people. So, yeah, great minds think alike.
Awesome, awesome.
Thanks for